Hello aspirants, I welcome you all to editorial analysis of Shankar IAS Academy. Today's date is 31st of January 2025. Displayed here are the list of articles that we are going to discuss today. In this first article discussion, we'll be discussing about the factors that are actually polluting Yamuna River and what are all the impacts of it and how we can rectify it. And in the second article discussion, we'll be discussing in detail about the ethical problem that happened in Sri Lanka long back and what are all the impacts currently it is having on Indian economy. So without any delay, let us look into the news article discussion. Now look at this article that talks about Sri Lanka's ethnic problem. This article has three different dimensions. In the first part, it talks about what happened during the civil war, what led to civil war, and in the second part, it talks about what is the aftermath of the civil war. Then in the third part, it talks about how the conflict, ethical conflict in our neighborhood is impacting our country, India. So from the mains perspective, let us see them one by one. Before that, I have a mains question for you. Let me read out the question. Discuss the significance of the 13th Amendment to the Sri Lankan Constitution in addressing ethnic conflict. Analyze its impact on India-Sri Lanka relations and India's strategic interest in the Indian Ocean region. So it is a 15-marker question for 250 words. So you can write an answer and post it in the comment section. We will review our answer as well as your peer will also review your answer. So let's start with what is the actual ethnic conflict in Sri Lanka. See, Sri Lanka as a country has three different ethnic composition. For the first is the majority Sinhalese, then we have minorities Tamils and we have Muslims. This Tamil population has been deported to Sri Lanka for work by British during the colonial era. So the labor will be like working on the agricultural land in Sri Lanka. So what happened is when there was a lot of Tamil people population in the Sri Lankan region, lot of allowances in terms of administration has been awarded by British government. So this is before the colonial era. So what happened after the independence of Sri Lanka is that in 1956, a particular act called Sinhalese Only Act was passed. So this Sinhalese Only Act says that the Sinhalese will be the official language of the particular country. So this particular act actually affected the minority Tamil people who were enjoying equal rights before the independence. So this is the actual root cause of this particular ethnical conflict in Sri Lanka. So apart from this, the university quota for Tamil people has also been restricted. So this led to hindering the population from going to higher studies. So all these led to Tamil nationalism in Sri Lanka country, and it led to an actual civil war between two factions, LTTE, which is nothing but the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam. So the basic demands of LTTE was to ask for equal opportunity in terms of employment, education as well as economical terms. However, after the civil war, Indo-Lanka Accord was signed in 1987. So this particular accord addressed all the ethnical conflict and the civil unrest that was happening in the Sri Lanka. So this ensured in Sri Lanka's unity, and it advocated for equal treatment of all citizens equally, and it even prescribed for territorial integrity as well as sovereignty. It has certain important provisions. Firstly, to devolve power to provincial council. See, these provincial council are nothing but if there is a particular country, imagine Sri Lanka, this Sri Lanka will be divided into provinces and each province will have a provincial council. So under this provincial council, there will be an executive committee that is headed by the chief minister of that particular province. Apart from this, they will have economical liberty as well as, which means they can tax people in their province. So it gave a legal framework for this functioning of a provincial council. Then it recognized Tamil as a official language, and a lot of Indian peacekeeping force has been deployed under this particular Indo-Lanka Accord. So this led to the cessation of hostility, which is nothing but war has been stopped between two communities for a particular period of time. Now moving on, this particular accord led to 13th Amendment in 1987, which had all the three aspects which we discussed just now. Firstly, the legislative power, then the executive power, and then the financial autonomy. So this led to war in end of the war in 2009. So Sri Lankan military, they won LTTE. This led to Tamil grievance and a lot of political representation, devolution, and human rights issues are there still not being properly addressed. Now, moving on, currently we have the Provincial Council elections being getting delayed. So, this means that the 13th Amendment that made to the Constitution of Sri Lanka is not completed yet, and a lot of human rights violations is happening even today. Now, moving on, we shall see about the challenges in implementing this 13th Amendment. See, the first thing is political opposition. They are actually keeping alive the conflict, which is a very big challenge. Secondly, Supreme Court's ruling, it has annulled the North and as well as South province merger. And thirdly, the delayed election, this is actually hindering the devolution of power. So we have three different challenges which needed to be addressed very promptly. Moving on, we shall see about what are all the impacts of these kinds of ethical conflict happening in our neighborhood for India. See, the first thing is regional unrest, and this will affect the peace when it comes to South Asia as a whole. Secondly, the ethnic relations. We have a lot of ethnic relation, especially the Tamil Nadu as a state. We have a lot of ethnic connection with the people, especially Tamil Elam. So this is also leading to a lot of domestic politics in our country. Thirdly, the refugee influx. There is a potential humanitarian as well as a logistical challenge when a particular region is going through a civil war. Then we have a strategic interest in the particular region. So any kind of external power being applied in the region will increase the influence in the Indian Ocean. So this is a very important impact that we have to consider, as well as the bilateral relations. A lot of bilateral strains will be happening, which will affect the trade, security, and cooperation between India and Sri Lanka. So these are all certain challenges or the impacts the ethnic conflict will have on India. Moving on, we shall see about what India can do. Firstly, diplomatic engagement. We have to push for 13th Amendment implementation. Secondly, we can provide a lot of reconciliation support, and for that we have to share experiences when it comes to diversity management as well as India's federalism, how it works, and a lot of guidance like that. Then we can give or provide a lot of humanitarian assistance. We can prepare Tamil refugees support, and then we can bring in regional cooperation. So this will not only enhance the bilateral relation but also the collaboration with South Asian nation for stability. So far we saw about the ethnic issue that is happening in Sri Lanka, that happened in Sri Lanka, and how the ethnic issue solved, and what are all the aftermath of it, how it impact India, and what can be done by our Indian government. So with these learned points, now let us move on to the next news article discussion. Now look at this editorial article. This article talks entirely about the pollution that is happening in the Yamuna River. It is talking about the sources, what are the challenges in addressing the particular issue, and how it can be rectified. So let us see them one by one. Before that, I have a mains practice question for you. Let me read out the question. Yamuna River is vital for Delhi's water supply and ecology, but faces issues like pollution and water scarcity. Highlight the major challenges and suggest ways to restore the river's health. So it is a 15 marker question for 250 words. So it is a very simple question. You can write an answer and post it in the comment section so that we can review your answer. So here, from the prelims perspective, it is very important to learn about what is the origin of Yamuna, what are all the left bank tributaries, what are all the right bank tributaries. But here, as we are focusing on the mains aspect, we are going to see the key issues when it comes to pollution of this particular river. See here, the article highlights three important key issues. Firstly, the drinking water. Secondly, the pollution. Thirdly, the environmental flow. So we shall see them one by one. Here, when we talk about the drinking water, they are talking about the quality and quantity concern. See, what happens is the upstream states, they take up the majority amount of water and they even pollute it, which leads to very bad quality of water being reaching the downstream states. So this is the first important issue highlighted by the article. And during the lean season as well, when a lot of amount of water is extracted in the upstream, there are a lot of water availability uncertainty, which leads to conflict as well. And there is a lack of proper accountability, because there is no proper water sharing agreement between the states when it comes to sharing of this particular river water. Moving on, we have to talk about Yamuna's pollution. See, the first important source is the untreated sewage. A lot of untreated sewage is getting added to this particular river, which is again compromising the quality of the water. Then we have the industrial effluents. This is also most of the time is released untreated. And we have solid waste, which is from the upstream, that having an impact on Delhi's sanitation as a whole. Then we have NGT. The National Green Tribunal has a Yamuna Monitoring Committee, but this Yamuna Monitoring Committee has very limited success in monitoring the release of these particular effluents into the river. And there are certain key polluters. These key polluters has been identified by NGT and other organizations. Even though these key polluters are identified, restricting them or monitoring them, the monitoring mechanism is very weak. So it has not led to a great success. Now, the third important key term that you have to remember is the environmental flow. Environmental flow is nothing but the amount of water or the quantity of water that is required for the river to maintain its ecological balance. So what happens when the water declines, or the quantity of water declines, is it loses the ability to digest or dilute the particular pollutant. So this water, what happens is, the water is extracted for drinking water purpose as well as the industrial purpose. So the quantity is reducing. While the quantity is reducing, the quality is also being compromised. If you're asking how, as I said, the amount of water that is required is declining. So we can tell that while we are taking out water, we are also not looking into the ecological balance of the particular river. That is what they are telling when it comes to the environmental flow. So according to NIH studies, we need to regulate all the upstream release, as well as we have to bring in a lot of stricter pollution control. So these are all very important facts that you have to remember from the news article discussion. Now let us see certain challenges in addressing this particular issue. See, the first thing is the interstate dispute. So there is a lot of political blame game. So this is actually hindering the effective solution that will solve the particular problem. So the conflict arises between two different states, as I said, the Haryana as well as the Delhi. And then we have the pollution and flow issue. So a lot of untreated sewage is directly discharged, for which we need a monitoring mechanism, and a lot of solid waste is being dumped. This is also choking the river. Apart from this, the environmental flow is lacking, which is also exacerbating the pollution. Moving on, we shall see about the other challenges. Third important challenge is the urbanization. The urbanization has actually encroached a lot of river area, to be precise. So we have to bring in a lot of technological innovation like geofencing. So what happens is, this geofencing will actually mark the bank of that particular river, and it will help us to identify encroachments very earlier. So those kinds of things can be encouraged, but when such kinds of initiative is not there, there is a lot of encroachment, as well as there is institutional inefficiency due to the fragmented governance, and there is weak implementation of the particular stricter rules, which hinders the release of effluents into the river. And fourthly, we have legal as well as public issues. For example, there are a lot of prolonged court cases that needed to be solved. We didn't get a particular ruling in those kinds of cases. Then we even lack public awareness. We have a lot of waste dumping done by the public itself, and we have to bring in a lot of understanding and awareness when it comes to sanitation. Moving on, we have to understand the way forward. So for this, we have to bring in consensus. So we have to concentrate a lot where we have to invest in a lot of interstate and inter-agency collaboration. So this will not only identify the problem but also the effective solution to those problems. Secondly, we have to bring in clear accountability. So we have to demarcate the upstream states and downstream states responsibility, and we have to bring in a lot of transparency into the issue, and we have to bring in a lot of through transparency we have to bring in a lot of accountability. Then we have to strengthen monitoring. For that we have to engage independent mechanisms. We can even empower the citizens to make a lot of complaints, and we can bring in surveillance through people itself. And finally we have to for sure bring in standards. We can bring in global standards when it comes to pollution control and the treatment of waste before disposing. So these kinds of way forward can work for Delhi, and it can work for the saving of the particular river Yamuna. So far we saw about the reasons or the sources of pollution of Yamuna River. Then we saw what are all the challenges in recovering the particular river, and then we saw about the way forward or what can be done. So with this we came to the end of the news article discussion. If you like the video, hit like, do comment, and don't forget to subscribe to Shankar IAS Academy YouTube channel. Now thank you so much for listening.